Yo guys, what's going on? I'm Tim Kelly, joined by Justin Godsey. This is the NFL Final Score on the Real Sports Talk Network. Because of the amount of huge games today, we are doing a 1 o'clock show and a 4:15 show, so make sure you check out the 4:15 one a little bit later on. But let's get straight into the 1 o'clock edition because there are a lot of good games, beginning with the Falcons getting a 31-24 win over the St. Louis Rams today. The Falcons got out to an early lead courtesy of Matt Ryan's 81-yard touchdown pass to Julio Jones, which gave the Falcons, ultimately led them to their first win of the season, and it dropped Sam Bradford and the St. Louis Rams, who almost came back later on in this game. It dropped them just into 1-1.
This is a big loss going in for the Atlanta Falcons when it comes to the player side of things. Steven Jackson, 3 carries for no yardage. He leaves the game with a thigh bruise. But you know what? They have backups. This is where it's going to be a big loss player-wise as Steven Jackson goes down. But you know what? They still got Jason Snellen, who carried the workload, and also got Rodgers. But you know what? Steven Jackson as a player, big player to keep healthy. So going forward, it seems he's going to be ready for next week as just a thigh bruise.
Yeah, it's just a thigh bruise. I think the reason why that was so prominent was because they were playing the Rams. But the Falcons, which is obviously Steven Jackson's team that he's been with for his entire career leading up to this year, but the Falcons do get a 31-24 win, and despite losing to the Saints last week, they are back at 500 at 1-1. The Bills get a 24-23 win over Cam Newton and the Panthers. And really what was a battle of the kickers, E.J. Manuel throws a late-game touchdown pass to Stevie Johnson right before time expires as Manuel gets his first career NFL win, and he drops Cam Newton and the Panthers, who are really just a terrible team, to 0-2. And Justin, Stevie Johnson, which you're going to get to in a minute, he had a huge game today. And offensively, besides Steve Smith and Cam Newton, the Panthers just really do not have a lot.
It's really frustrating right now for the Carolina Panthers. This is a team which a lot of people came into the season hoping that they could really turn things around. You know, they got Star Lutulele out of Utah going in on this defensive line. Very stunning defense, which features Luke Kuechly, John Beeson, Captain Moonerlin, and then you also got, like I said, Star Lutulele. But this team has been ultimately, in the past couple of weeks, really underperforming. But when it goes to the Buffalo Bills, my MVP of the game, no doubt in my mind, Tim, you said it, Stevie Johnson, got targeted 8 times. Or 10 times, got 8 receptions out of the 10 targets he was thrown to, 111 yards, got that game-winning touchdown with 2 seconds left in the game. Big ups to the Buffalo Bills, and big ups to none other than E.J. Manuel getting his first win of his NFL career.
Yeah, they've played pretty solid the first 2 weeks. They hung with the Patriots, although they didn't win that game. They hung with them, which most people didn't expect. And then they beat a bad Panthers team here to get to 1-1. The Bears beat the Vikings 31-30. Jay Cutler overcame 2 interceptions to lead a game-winning touchdown drive to Martellus Bennett and drop the Vikings to 0-2. And Justin, the Bears defense came up big today as we saw an interception return for a touchdown. And I think when Christian Ponder's forced to throw the ball because Adrian Peterson does not pretty much single-handedly win this game, at least offensively, for the Vikings, they're probably just not going to be a very successful team.
This is a really step back in the wrong direction for the Minnesota Vikings. This team last year, what were they, like a 10 or 11 win team last season, really just surprising the entire National Football League. But then again, it was all Adrian Peterson last year. Adrian Peterson in this game played very well. Came off to a slow start to the season, as last week the first rush he ever had was for like a 75-yard touchdown. But Adrian Peterson in 26 rush attempts got 100 yards. He lost a fumble, which is going to hurt some fantasy owners. It hurt me. We didn't get the big amount of points and fantasy points this week for Adrian Peterson. But you know what? It's still a work in progress. This team is really having a setback, kind of like how the Carolina Panthers are. Let's just hope that next week they can get back on the side of things. As for the Chicago Bears, Jay Cutler, 2 interceptions, 3 touchdowns. Not the greatest ratio right here. But then again, Jay Cutler comes in a clutch situation, gets that game-winning touchdown to Martellus Bennett as the Bears continue to win.
Yeah, so far I liked what Mark Trestman has brought to the Bears, and I think if you look at Adrian Peterson, 26 carries for 100 yards, it's good. But for the Vikings to make the playoffs, they have a solid defense with Chad Greenway, Jared Allen. It's a good defensive team. Offensively, though, I don't trust Christian Ponder. I know they have Greg Jennings there now. I know that they have Kyle Rudolph, but I don't trust Christian Ponder throwing the ball. So I think Adrian Peterson needs to go above and beyond. And today he had just a good game, and I'm not sure that's going to be enough for this team to make the playoffs. The Packers get a 38-20 win over RG3 and the Redskins. They got out to a 31-0 lead before RG3 and the Redskins were able to recover and put together really any sort of offensive success. And not only has the Redskins' defense been torched the first 2 weeks, but RG3 has had slow starts in both of these games. And to me, I think that the Redskins rushed this guy back. Aaron Rodgers, don't get me wrong, Aaron Rodgers torched this defense for the Redskins. It was not just all RG3. RG3's stat line looks good at the end of the game, but in the first half he had another slow start, and I don't think it's because he didn't play in the preseason, because he had last week under his belt. I just think maybe he isn't ready yet. Maybe they would have been better off starting Kirk Cousins for the first 2 or 3 games and letting RG3 fully get back to the point where not only is he 100% physically, but he's 100% mentally, and I'm just not sure right now that he's at that point.
You know, Tim, I have to agree with you right there before we get into my highlight player of the game. But Robert Griffin III, this is going to be a completely different RG3 that we've seen. You know, last year, a fantastic human highlight reel. He's just been the complete opposite. But then again, in this game, he was actually doing really, really well. 320 yards, 3 touchdowns, and that interception. But then again, my highlight player of the game is Aaron Rodgers of the Green Bay Packers. This guy, back to the form that he was last year, obviously, because last week it wasn't really the greatest, look of Aaron Rodgers against San Francisco. He was 34 for 42 tonight with almost close to 500 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, and no interceptions. This guy, big up to Aaron Rodgers as they are now 1-1 on the year, the Green Bay Packers. Let's just hope that this team can keep on winning.
Yeah, and James Starks becomes the first Packers player to rush for 100 yards since 2010. Brandon Jackson, the last guy to do that. Eddie Lacy today left the game with a concussion after a 10-yard run. Brandon Merriweather had a bad hit on him, so we'll see what happens. But getting back to RG3 real quickly, I think passing-wise he looked all right today, but 4 carries for 1 yard. Rushing-wise, he just is not a threat to begin this season. I know that they want to keep him healthier, but they can't take away the rushing game completely. The rushing aspect to him is part of what made him so successful.
We'll just have to wait and see what Jonathan Franklin can really bring to the plate next week.
Yeah, they are going to. So the Dolphins get a 24-20 win over the Colts. They get out to an early lead, and after blowing that lead, they retake the lead in the third quarter on a Charles Clay touchdown run that proved to be the game-winning score as the Dolphins get their first 2-0 start get a 2-0 start for just the second time in 10 weeks. Mike Wallace came alive today after a slow start to the season last week in his Dolphins career. And the Colts, to me, have had a disappointing start with what we've seen out of them the first 2 weeks. I know they're 1-1, but they've disappointed me.
You know, I have to agree with you a little bit. You know, passing-wise for Andrew Luck, it was good tonight. 321 yards. The ratio, I thought, with the kind of stats that he put up tonight, this guy could have thrown for multiple touchdowns. But, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. This team has really got to rely on a much better defense. This team was really picked apart from the defense a little bit. They lost Dwight Freeney, who was a big help to that team last year, but then again, he's deteriorated just a smidge. But then again, he is that captain. They're missing on that captain. So, you know what? It's a whole new look to this Colts team. Andrew Luck taking over. Ahmad Bradshaw is in here to, carry the rushing, Donald Brown. And then, look at the Miami Dolphins, the real surging Miami Dolphins. This team is really set to go to war against the New England Patriots once that day comes. Ryan Tannehill, 23 for 34, 319 yards, 1 touchdown. That's a good performance there. But my highlight player, I like to call it, Mike Wallace, gets it tonight. 9 receptions. He got targeted 11 times. Very accurate game for him, 115 yards, getting that touchdown for Ryan Tannehill as this Miami Dolphins team continue to surge and get close to facing off against those New England Patriots in what could be a bloodbath.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And the Chiefs get a 17-16 win over the Cowboys, and what some would call an upset, I called this one, but they improved to 2-0 despite a huge day from Dez Bryant, who had over 140 receiving yards and a touchdown. Andy Reid and the Chiefs are now at 2-0. Alex Smith has looked good. They're going to get a test next week heading in Thursday night against Chip Kelly and the Philadelphia Eagles. And not only is that game just a big game because it's 2 first-year head coaches who offensively have their teams playing well, but obviously because of Andy Reid's history with Philadelphia, it has other implications.
I honestly came into the season for the Kansas City Chiefs having them at 0-2 because this is a team which I honestly, that me and you, Tim, and prospectively, said that this team is never going to adapt. They're not going to really do a whole lot with Alex Smith as a pocket precision quarterback, with Andy Reid running that fast-paced offense. We thought it wasn't going to happen, but, Andy Reid's 2-0 in the whole new Andy Reid era in Kansas City. I'll give him the credit where credit is due. But then again, the Dallas Cowboys kept this game very close, but in the end, it was nothing but the Kansas City Chiefs picking up the victory as they won 17-16 with my player of the game is not going to a Kansas City Chiefs player. You can really make a good case for Alex Smith, 21 for 36, 223 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, but he was sacked 4 times. But the guy, the highlight of the game, no doubt in my mind, is Dez Bryant of the Dallas Cowboys. 9 receptions, 13, he was targeted 13 times, 141 yards, and 1 touchdown.
Yeah, he's been a top 5 receiver to me since about the middle of last season. The Chargers and Eagles, this game had different implications for us. I'm an Eagles fan. Justin's a Chargers fan. As long as we've done this show, we have not had the Eagles play the Chargers, so we've really Justin's been bragging about 2009 when Donovan McNabb and Brian Westbrook were still on the Eagles. Today, though, the Chargers do get a 33-30 win over the Eagles, and I'm not saying this is the best game of the day because we cared about it more. I really think so far, at least, it was the best game of the day. Michael Vick throws for 400 yards, and Deshaun Jackson finishes just shy of 200 receiving yards, but the Eagles' defense cannot slow down Phillip Rivers and the Chargers, who lead a downfield drive to get a game-winning field goal by Nick Novak, who is not taking a piss on the sideline today. And the Chargers are sitting at 1-1 after a disappointing Week 1 loss, and the Eagles are 1-1 heading into the Andy Reid Bowl in Week 3.
Well. This is a game where I'm going to address one thing here. This is going to be a game that we're going to be sitting here for about a couple of minutes, so just bear with me for a moment here. To all the Phillip Rivers haters out there, F off, okay? Honestly, I'm just saying that to you guys out there. I'm trying to make it as positive as I can. You Phillip Rivers haters out there, he showed it on the field tonight against Philadelphia. A lot of people have been saying, oh, look at the Philadelphia Eagles offense. Tim, I'm not trying to disrespect you. We said our piece to each other. Yeah. But the Chargers shut down those Eagles at the last second. Big ups to Phillip Rivers and the Chargers picking up the victory. Hands down in my mind, Phillip Rivers in the first quarter was 8 for 8 with 120 yards passing going into the second quarter. This guy was nothing but accurate tonight. Big ups to Phillip Rivers and the Chargers, and what it was a big win. Big ups to the Philadelphia Eagles keeping this game entertained. This game is no doubt in my mind Sunday Night Football material. This game is highlight of the week, talk of the town, talk of the country. This game was just pure entertainment. Phillip Rivers, 3 touchdown passes. That's how we do it in San Diego. Chargers next week is taking on Dallas as the Eagles. Tim, I don't know who you guys are facing, but good luck to you guys next week.
Thursday Night Football. So, Justin, we both have fun teams who offensively are great and defensively cannot stop anything. So I think in the end we're both going to end up with teams that win 6 or 7 games. But at the very least, they're a lot more fun than when we used to have to come on here last year and rant about Norv Turner and Andy Reid. So there is that positive spin for at least me to take out of it. You get the win. Both teams at 1-1. The Ravens get a 14-6 win over the Browns. Despite Billy Cundiff's best efforts to come in and beat the team that he cost going to the Super Bowl a few years ago, the Ravens do get their first win of the season after a disappointing Week 1 loss to Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos, almost at the Indianapolis Colts there. The Browns as a team dropped to 0-2, and so far, Justin, I think they are the most disappointing team of the first 2 weeks. Not only has it been Brandon Weeden who's disappointed me, Trent Richardson hasn't done much, and I think this was a team, at the very least, we expected them to be competitive this year. And today, I guess they were competitive in this game, but putting up 6 points, it's a bad team. That's how they've looked the first 2 weeks.
The ultimate disappointment here is this Cleveland Browns team. I'll take the ultimate disappointment for the Cleveland Browns over the Carolina Panthers and over the other team that I said earlier that I cannot think of. I know it's at the tip of my tongue. But the Cleveland Browns have been that ultimate disappointment because this is a team which everybody has came in and said that the AFC North is going to be that division that's going to be thrown up for there and for the Cleveland Browns to come up and snatch that title. And Brandon Weeden has just been nothing but a disappointment. The running game has been an utter disappointment. We saw Jason Campbell come in. The offensive line has not, we have nothing but production coming from that offensive line, or nothing but negative yardage is coming from that offensive line. If you look at today's game, 5 sacks was given up on Brandon Weeden. The offensive line was doing nothing to help Brandon Weeden out, and that is going to affect teams. This is what's going to hold the Cleveland Browns from, championship caliber or from division championship caliber. They really need someone to come in. The team has great targets when it comes to, receiving-wise. Jordan Cameron, Devon Bress, Greg Little. They're going to get Josh Gordon. I think it's going to be coming. I think his suspension is coming off next week. But then again, you bring him in, and you're going to have to jump him into a system very, mid early to the season. But you know what? This team has been utter disappointment right now, and I'm really disappointed, as my MVP does go out to none other than Bernard Pierce of the Baltimore Ravens, as this guy really exploded tonight. You also got to give ups to Joe Flacco tonight, but the running game was the headline in Baltimore. I'm going with Bernard Pierce as my rushing champion here for tonight. That's the way I can put it. This game was just not really that entertaining.
Yeah, Bernard Pierce is a really, really good backup. One of the best backups in the league. So final 1 o'clock game was an overtime game. The Texans escape what would have been a massive upset. They get a 30-24 overtime win on a DeAndre Hopkins touchdown, 3-yard catch from Matt Schaub. Justin, they're 2-0. You saw them against the Chargers last week. Obviously, I watched the game too. But they played your team last week. And while the Texans are 2-0, they've really played down to 2 teams that they should have beat by more, I think, through the first 2 weeks. So they might be 2-0, but they haven't really impressed me.
This is a really down team. This is something that's really going to affect the team. There's always that big question for the Houston Texans. A lot of this quarterback situation with Matt Schaub and everything. What the Texans can do is that what they can really do is really brighten throughout the regular season. But when you go into the postseason and you're facing off against the Denver Broncos, the New England Patriots, this team is always a hype team to come off as be that upset person. But you know what? They're not getting the job done. They cannot be efficient enough going into the postseason. But you know what? This team is 2-0 right now. I would like to give big ups to the Tennessee Titans, as they looked fantastic the past couple of weeks. Jake Locker really improving as a quarterback. He just has to stay healthy, and I think this team can be, they can, hold their reign in this division and be like, okay, we're still here to win. Jake Locker can do that with Chris Johnson in the backfield, but when it comes to Houston, it's just right now the question. They are 2-0, but you know what? The efficiency needs to be there. But you know what? They did come into Tennessee, and they really... They took it. They took the game, and I give them the big ups for it.
Yeah, DeAndre Hopkins had a great game. So that finishes out the 1 o'clock games. We will be back later on for the 4:15 games. For now, I'm Tim Kelly, joined by... I'm still trying to get over this Eagles loss. Joined by an extremely happy Justin Godsey, and we will catch you guys next time.